Dreams are my speciality. Through dreams, I influence mankind. Okay, so we are back, and it's been a week, and I now have a review of something that is on the poster and in the book. So we are continuing our run of me rambling on about films. And before we get too much into this, I want to give you some disclaimers. These videos are completely unedited. So if you end up hearing my dog in the background barking at somebody, you end up hearing him. These are unfiltered, which means I'm going to be saying adult things. So if you have kids in the room, you probably want to ask them to leave the room or put your headphones on. And I will end up giving spoilers away, especially for the movie I'm reviewing, which tonight is Inception. I will end up giving away spoilers, but no fear. You can look at the list of movies below this video. I'll have a whole list with categories, and one of the categories will be spoilers. So if you want to avoid spoilers, just look at the few movies that I actually give spoilers for, and you can avoid this or you can avoid spoilers if you don't want to know for those films that I do give spoilers for. Anyway, I have to be 100% honest with you. There are some movies that I dread, that I was looking at the poster and I dread the day that I have to review it. One of them is definitely Interstellar, and unfortunately one of them was Inception. Why was I so afraid of reviewing this? Because I don't want somebody to think that I'm smarter than I am, because I'm not. And I also don't want somebody to think that I'm stupider than I am, because, I'm not. And this was one of those thinking person movies that I was really afraid to talk about in depth. But you know what? I'm just going to talk about the parts that I love and the parts that I have something to say about. And I'm not going to get too in-depth with how the story works. Much like Tenet. Oh my goodness, my mind wrapping around Tenet. Anyway, let's move on. This is in the book, and this is challenge number 21. A film that has won Best Cinematography. Okay, so before we get too in-depth, and I don't want to make this a super long video like the last one was, The Green Mile, I want to get through this as soon as possible, but I do want to say real quick, for those of you who don't know what cinematography is or don't know how to look for cinematography, someone once told me that cinematography is the overall world of the film. And then I started to think, okay, the overall world of the film, but there's so much in that. There's set design, there's makeup, there's special effects, blah, blah, blah. So what is cinematography? And I researched it and found out that there are two big keys to cinematography. I am not a cinematographer, so if I get some of this wrong, please tell me so. But in doing my research, I found the two keys to look for when it comes to cinematography. The two big keys. There are probably more, but these are the two big ones. 1, camera angles and movement. Camera angles and movement and type. Like, am I using a handheld? Am I using a Steadicam? What angle am I looking at this from? How does the movement work? Okay, that's 1. And 2 is lighting and color. Lighting and color makes a big difference. Shadows and what's bright, what's not bright, what the color is, what the saturation is. Have we taken all the color out of it? Are we really showing the color? Those two things have a huge impact on the feel of the film. And that is what cinematography, those are two of the big keys to watching for cinematography. Okay, so this film did win Best Cinematography. The movie title, the movie I'm reviewing tonight is Inception, year released 2010, aspect ratio 2.39:1, running time 2 hours and 28 minutes, so it is a long film. Genre, action, adventure, science fiction, rated PG-13. Okay, so I'll do this now. Date challenged, 9/30. Unfortunately, you are not getting the video until October 1st. Hopefully October 1st. I have a wedding to go to on October 1st, so hopefully I have enough time to post this on October 1st, but I'm going to try my damnedest. My rating, I gave it a 4.5, out of 5 stars. I love this movie, but it's just not... Every time I watch it, it's not quite a 5-star movie for me. This is starring so many people, and like I said before in the book, they give me such a small line, so I'm going to go off of IMDb. Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ken Watanabe. I love Ken Watanabe in this. He's so great. He does have a semi-smaller role, but he's fantastic. So Elliot Page, when Elliot was going by Ellen Page, he is now Elliot Page. Fantastic in this movie. Tom Hardy, Cillian Murphy, Tom Berenger, Pete Postlethwaite, which I love from what was it? The DiCaprio version of Romeo and Juliet. He was so good in that, but he's been in so many other things. He's fantastic. I love Michael Caine, even though he almost has nothing to do in this. He has a very small part, but I love him in this movie. There's just so many great actors in this film. Directed by Christopher Nolan, produced by Christopher Nolan, written by Christopher Nolan. Now, I wanted to say all those together because this is like a Christopher Nolan film, even though produced by is also Emma Thomas. So this is definitely a huge Christopher Nolan film. He's done some great stuff in the past. I reviewed Memento already, and that was another one that was a huge Christopher Nolan film. Music by Hans Zimmer. Now, in my opinion, there's nothing hugely impactful about the music in this one, at least for me. I'm sure some people out there love the music in this. The music was good, but I was not hugely impacted by the music of this. And Hans Zimmer has done, in my opinion, more impactful soundtracks than this. Okay, moving on. Awards received. Like I said, this is a film that has won Best Cinematography. I'm assuming they mean Oscar, so I put that down. Awards received, Best Cinematographer Oscar. But it also won Best Sound Mixing, Best Sound Editing, and Best Visual Effects. And the funniest thing is, I remember that Terminator 2, which is also on the list, also won those awards. Sound editing, sound mixing, I believe, if I remember correctly, visual effects, but it didn't win Best Cinematography. It did win Best Makeup. I mean, Stan Winston is fucking amazing. Anyway, I just thought it was funny, the similarities between what this film won and what Terminator 2 won, and I'll have more to talk about that later that ties in. Why did you choose this particular film? It's on the poster, and I love that it's a really amazing idea for a film, for a story. Have you seen this before? Yes, I've seen it plenty of times. I own it, and I did see it in the theater. I remember seeing it in the theater. Would you recommend this would you recommend this? Why or why not? You know what? That's a hard one. This is definitely a thinking person's film. Now, is it, I already mentioned Tenet. Is it as thinking as Tenet? No. Tenet is such a thinking person's film. You will get lost if you cannot follow it. Absolutely. This is not quite that bad. It does a very good job of explaining itself, even though there are slightly complicated films or slightly complicated concepts in this film. It does explain itself very well. I do know people who have been in the industry who could not get through this film, and that's perfectly fine. It's not for everyone. It is definitely a thinking person's film. This is not a check-out kind of film, just entertain and not have to think. This is a thinking person's film. And I would say, because Nolan did all three of them, I would say Memento is the least thinking person's film of the three. Inception is in the middle, and Tenet is definitely on the end of, if you cannot put your thinking cap on, you will not get through it at all. Which character were you able to identify with or connect with, and why? Okay, so this is another one where there are two characters in this film that I identify with very, very well, but then also don't identify with. I keep going back and forth between Cobb and Arthur. And if you don't remember, Cobb is DiCaprio's character and Arthur is Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. And the reason why, okay, Cobb is damn good at what he does. He's one of the best. And in the accounting world, numbers make so much sense to me, which is my day job. I am really fucking good at that job. People come to me all the time about questions. I used to work with people who had a degree and they would ask me questions about things because I knew it. But then again, I don't have kids of my own. I was married. It did not end well. But his life experience is completely different than mine. And that's why sometimes I identify with him a lot and sometimes I don't at all. Now, as far as Arthur is very loyal and dependable, and my friends know me as someone who is very loyal and dependable. But Arthur isn't really fleshed out all that well in this film. He is a side character. Joseph Gordon-Levitt does a great fucking job in this movie, but he is a side character and not fleshed out as well as I wished his character were. Best line or memorable quote. There are a few of great lines. People love that line in the beginning, old man living alone, dying of regret, or something like that. A lot of people love that line, and yes, that is a very memorable line. But what always pops in my mind for this film is you're waiting for a train that will take you far away. You know where you hope this train will take you, but you don't know for sure. That whole line, and then she finishes it, and then at times they don't finish it, and at times that always pops in my mind when I think of this film because it's said several times, and it's such an important theme, an important part of the film. Were you surprised by the ending? What would you do differently? I was not surprised by the very, very, very ending where obviously Christopher Nolan is not the type of director or writer who is going to take us on this journey and then the end is not going to end positive. Sorry, Steven Spielberg is not the type of a person who's going to write a film where at the end the bad guy wins. He's not gonna. And neither is Christopher Nolan. Okay? He is not going to take us on this journey and it not end positive. He ends on a positive note. And so I was not surprised by the ending of, Cobb gets back to his family. Did you feel the cinematography in this film enhanced it or carried it? In what way? Okay. So when I first saw this film, actually the first couple of times probably I saw this film, I did not notice the cinematography as something that had impacted me. And yes, I didn't always know exactly what I didn't know all the nuances of cinematography, but I knew what to look for when it came to cinematography because when Open Range came out, Kevin Costner, I was blown away by the cinematography. And I was like, oh my God, this, and if I remember correctly, I think it did win cinematography, or at least it was nominated for cinematography. And then the other one was this last year, the remake of All Quiet on the Western Front blew me a fucking way. The music was fantastic, and then cinematography was amazing. And I thought to myself, if this doesn't win, I'll be pissed. And it did. It won both music and cinematography. If I'm not blowing this completely out of the wrong, yes, I'm almost positive it won for both because I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, it deserved it. Yes, All Quiet on the Western Front, I'm looking at my list now, won cinematography and music. Why? Because it deserved it. It was amazing. Okay, what was also nominated for cinematography? Because I didn't notice the cinematography right away. When I watched it tonight with the thought in mind that it had won cinematography, I started to understand, okay, I get now why it won. all the different levels of the dreams have a different look to them. Coloring, shading. It really did add something. And then a lot of the camera movements, especially when it comes to a lot of the special effects. Of course it won special effects. The special effects are fucking amazing in this movie. I mean, just watching the trailer for the movie, you're like, oh my god, it's gotta win best, special effects. But anyway, how the camera moves and shows you the special effects was really good. Now, do I think it should have won over the other films that year, cinematography? So I'm looking at my list, and unfortunately, there are 5 films that were nominated for Best Cinematography that year, and I only have seen 2. So I really can't talk shit. Unfortunately. Okay, so Inception won. True Grit, the remake, which I thought was just horrible. Okay, I love the actors in that film, but fuck no, the original was so much better. And I'm not a huge fan of John Wayne, even though I was born on his birthday. I'm not the biggest fan of his, but there are a few films that he's done that I find very, very good. The original True Grit is one of them. Rio Bravo, and then there was another one I watched not too long ago that I was shocked. It was actually really good. The Searchers. Really good. Anyway, True Grit, the remake, okay, moving on. The other movies, The other movies that were nominated that year that I did not see are Black Swan, The King's Speech, and Social Network. So I really can't say shit because I've only seen 2 of the films that were nominated that year, and this one won. Okay, so moving on. The last question is, anything else you'd like to add? I have plenty of notes, so we're going to get to that. This little note at the very end of the book, Dorothy was supposed to have silver slippers in The Wizard of Oz, 1939, but the ruby slippers showed up better on film. How is that the same? I mean, just like Return of the Jedi, where he was supposed to actually have a blue saber, but it didn't show up well, so they chose green, and that's why he ended up with the green saber in Return of the Jedi. If you didn't know that, I just spoiled that for you. So I'll make sure that ends up in the spoiler list under my thing. Okay, so I have a ton of notes. I'm going to try to get through them as quick as possible. And I realize that the funny thing is, the beginning of this film, the first half, or maybe even less than half, there are so many notes to make, so many things that showed up, and then the second half was just like, okay, we've already done everything, now we're just watching the fun part, and there really wasn't a whole lot of notes for the second half of the film. So trying to get through it as soon as possible. I don't care about that. Okay, let's get into the first mission. Not how the movie starts. Yes, the movie starts with like, okay, we're showing a quick foreshadow of like the end of the film, but we don't really know that, and it kind of gets you hooked, and it's fine because it's an intrigue. But what I really want to get into is the first mission, which is like a test. So that whole first dream within a dream sequence where they're trying to get Saito's safe. Okay, I want to talk about that, because it's such a great representation of the rest of the film, only we don't 100% know it. They don't explain any of it. They just show you it practically. They kind of try to show you. And watching it second time around, or third, or fifth, or 20th time around, you really get that they're showing you little pieces of what they explain later. Which is why I love this whole opening sequence, because now that I've seen the film enough and understand it, watching this whole first mission really shows you in practicality, real quick, everything that they're going to explain throughout the movie. What do I mean by that? The slower times within Dream Within a Dream, the way the time changes. They show that very clearly when they show his ticking watch. They show the ticking watch in the Dream Within the Dream with his level 2, and then it speeds up, and then all of a sudden you're in level 1 with, the riot outside or whatnot. And you may or may not get that that's what they're trying to tell you, because you're watching the movie and it's all new and it's all intriguing. You're like, oh, okay. But what they're really trying to show you is that the time is different. The effects from the higher levels affect the lower levels. And they show you that. How do they show you that? Because there's the rumbling and rattling in the lower level, in level 2, and then we go back to level 1 and the riots outside and the apartment. Blah, blah. So they're conceptually, visually showing you things and not explaining it, that they explain later on and use later on. So that's why I love this first mission. It really is, without you knowing it, subconsciously showing you the effects of dream within a dream, and then they explain it later, which is brilliant. How about the effects of higher up? What I found, what I noticed tonight that I didn't notice before, I find it interesting that in the dream within the dream, the first mission, the second level, we're in Arthur's dream. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. We're in Arthur's dream. She even says that. Maul says that we're in, because of the architecture, we must be in his dream. And that's why she tortures him. And then Cobb ends up shooting him. Okay, to wake him up. I find it interesting that the architect of the dream, the person whose dream we're in, which is Arthur, if we kill him and wake him up, we don't automatically come out of the dream. Everybody stays in the dream. I thought that was interesting. Why wouldn't we all wake up if it's his dream? When he wakes up, shouldn't we all wake up? I just thought that was interesting. Is that something that Nolan didn't flesh out, didn't care about, and we don't care about because it's just a movie? Maybe. Because if the person having the dream, if we are sharing his dream and he wakes up, shouldn't we all wake up? I thought that was interesting. Yeah, okay. When I saw Maul for the first time, I remember thinking that she was, she says, how are the children? I remember thinking they had been divorced and she was like competition to him. When I saw it in theater, I don't think I caught the first time they said, or after the whole mission, when he's on the phone to his kids and he says something about mom's not here, I remember in the theater, I did not get that he was talking about the fact that she's passed. I didn't get that. I just thought they had been divorced and she was basically competition because she was in the same field as him, and that's why she was in the dream trying to get this job because they were, Saito was testing them. That's what I thought. I didn't catch the fact that she is just his subconscious and she was dead until they actually tell you that. And then I was shocked. I was like, holy shit, really? Whoa. Then I was shocked. So I specifically remember being in the theater not thinking that. And then when they told me that, I was like, holy shit, okay. Like I said before, the special effects are mind-blowing. I fucking love the special effects in this scene with everything blowing up and all the water coming in. But also, later on in the scene with the, there's so many great special effects in this, but I'll talk about that later. The special effects are outstanding in this. And of course it won special effects. It had to, because it's just wow. I would have to look up, because it's not on my list, like the other films that went up for special effects, but, anyway, I already said that. I love that Cobb's subconscious constantly shows up in everything. Why? Because he is the least in control of his subconscious. And he's the only one we really know enough backstory to understand he has so many things in his life and so many difficult situations in his life that are unresolved, that of course his subconscious is the one that keeps showing up. We don't know enough about any other character except for, Fisher. We find out a lot about his character. But honestly, that none of these characters do we go in depth with as much as we do Cobb and then eventually Fisher. We don't know anything about these people at all. None of them. And so it makes sense that the one person we actually know anything about, Cobb, who has a lot of unresolved stuff in his life, of course it's his subconscious that constantly shows up in all the dream levels. And the most important shows up absolutely everywhere, not Maul. The most important that shows up absolutely everywhere is his kids. Notice there are places where his kids show up that Maul doesn't show up. And I actually love that. that his kids are so important and so a part of his life that no matter where he goes, no matter what dream level he goes into, they show up. No idea is simple when you need to plan it in someone else's mind. How do I know you can deliver? You don't, but I can. Okay, so those two lines right at that, when Saito is offering them job, those two lines offer so much intrigue. Holy shit! Like I'm hooked. Like, okay, they've opened the door to something and haven't resolved it. And then Cobb later on says, I've done it before. And then later on, when Cobb is talking to Michael Caine's character, his dad, he says, I found a job that'll fix my charges. All these things within a span of like 5 minutes, all these lines, all these insights to such intrigue, to a larger story that we don't know anything about. Holy crap. They're telling us something really important about a bigger story that we don't know anything about. It's masterful intrigue. Like masterful. And it hooks us. Just think about those when they offer him the job and he says, this is not as easy as you think. And he says, how do I know you can deliver the promise that you give me? You don't, but I can. And then when I've done Inception before. This is I know it's possible. And then this guy offers to fix the charges so I can go back home. So much intrigue and no explanation. It's so beautiful, and it reminds me of Stephen King's writing. They say he's the king of horror, but he's also the king of fucking anticipation. Like, he will intrigue the hell out of you with just saying one thing, and then you're like, fuck, I'm hooked. Now I have to figure out what blah, blah, blah. He will literally say in like the halfway point of the book, like, that he will basically tell you that this character dies eventually, but won't tell you how. And then now you're like, fuck, now I have to read the book and find out, because this is like a side character. Maybe it's not the main character. Maybe it's a secondary main character. And then he says that this person dies, and you're like, oh crap, now I got to read, because now I know he dies. You've created such intrigue that I've got to finish the book to figure out, okay, how does this person die? And he does that type of thing all the time. And one of the books that I remember he does it like over and over every like 10 pages, like just, oh my God, it makes me want to read more, is The Eye of the Dragon. Oh my God. Over and over and over. He hints at something in the future, big in the future. And you're just like, great, now I got to read and keep going. Now I got to read and keep going. And these 5 minutes do that perfectly. Christopher Nolan did such a great job with the writing, because these like 5 or 10 minutes, these quick situations where they give you hints of the story, of a bigger story involving Cobb, hook you. And you're like, great, now I got to watch the whole, now I'm like anticipating how does Inception work? He's done it. Are they going to explain who he's done it to? And what are these charges he's talking about? Why can't he go back to his kids? So you've got so much invested already, and you're like, okay, here we go. Cafe, the dream with Ariadne. So I love that first dream with Ariadne, where they're at the cafe, what looks like it might be like somewhere in Europe, France or something. They're at the cafe, and he explains how the architect works, what the architect does, the architect of the dream, and how it works because you're in a dream, and then how to tell you're in a dream. All this beautiful explanation, just I'm just so captivated. Much like if you remember, okay, spoiler alert, if you remember the second Matrix film, Reloaded, at near the end of the film, which is my favorite, the second one is my favorite, near the end of the film when they talk to the architect, oh, how funny, the architect, and he explains to Neo how this is all routine. We've done this before. There's always an anomaly. There's always a chosen one. And this is how it works, because this is the only way to keep you at bay. So all the information that you get in that scene is like this scene. I love this scene where this scene and so many more following it, where they explain how everything works. And that's why I say this is a thinking person's movie, because now we get to start explaining how all these little pieces work. And it starts with this scene with her, with explaining what her job is going to be and how to do it. This is the scene when she notices it's a dream, and then the cafe starts blowing up, and everything starts blowing up. Okay, it wasn't just the special effects that are great with everything blowing up. This is when I was in the theater, and you're listening to the big THX sound or Dolby or whatever you're listening to. The sound, I remember being in the theater going, God, this sounds great. And the pop. And I was like, holy shit, this sounds amazing. And it reminded me of Terminator 2. No shit, I'm not joking. It literally reminded me of Terminator 2. The gunshots, the way he moved, the way it sounded when he made instruments of death, all the sounds from Terminator 2. I was like, there are very few movies where I'm like, God, the sound, U571. Oh my God. I remember being in the theater and just like feeling so like claustrophobic because they're in the tub and the depth charge is going off. I remember there are certain films where I remember the sound being outstanding. And I remember watching this one in the theater thinking the sound was outstanding at this point when those things, that's the first time I was like, holy shit, the sound is amazing. Much like Terminator 2. Side note, when they wake up from that first dream in the cafe before they go back under, tonight I was watching, I was like, damn, Joseph Gordon-Levitt has a great butt. Like, holy shit. And like, he's always in that suit, so he always looks great. I'm not all that attracted to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but wow, okay. I mean, if men can talk about women's breasts, I can say, Joseph Gordon-Levitt has a great butt. Fucking hell yeah. Okay, anyway, back to my notes. They go back into the dream. Now, that when they go back into the dream and she folds the city back on top of itself, holy shit, this must have been the point where they were like, this kind of special effects was so amazing. I feel like somebody was watching this and went, if they can do that, we can do Doctor Strange. Because Doctor Strange has got to look like that. And it does. It's fantastic. I love it. But I wonder if somebody was looking at this and just went, okay, if somebody figured out how to do that, we can figure out how to do what we need to do for Doctor Strange. Anyway, Ames. When Cobb goes and recruits Eames, I'm trying to get through these as quick as possible. It's already half an hour, and I'm sure I've got more notes here. I love Ames because Cobb and Ames are the perfect combination to pull this off. Why? Cobb has already done this. He hasn't explained why. We as the audience don't know why. But when he talks to Ames, Ames says yes, we did it. We've done it. So we have two people who have successfully done Inception, but Ames says it was sort of a failure because he found out where the idea came from us. We have to make sure that the idea is as basic as possible so that he can't trace the genesis of the idea. So I love that these two people have come together because they are the ones that are absolutely going to pull this off. It's not everybody else. Everybody else is going to figure out how the structure works, but they are the ones who are going to figure out how the idea works, which is the most important part. I love that. Those characters are great. The dream room. So when they go into the dream room, talking about the sedative, and all those guys are like this is how they dream now because they can't be anything else. They come here to be woken up. The dream has become their reality. Who are you to say otherwise? I love that because their experience of what it must be like to be able to go into a world that consciously you can create any way you want, and to do that every day, and to be able to go into this world that you can create from scratch anything and everything, and it feels real at the time until you wake up. I loved that idea and seeing those people in there. And then when he goes under, when he says, "Show me what you got," about the drug, we start to get glimpses of his past and a little more depth into that intrigue. Like I said before, so much intrigue about pieces of the story that we don't know. And then here we get images, a couple of quick images of that story that will be told later. And it just keeps you hooked on Cobb and Cobb's life and that story. It's very, very, very well done. Cillian Murphy, oh my God, what a beautiful man. Like, he is just... I know plenty of people, put Brad Pitt on a magazine and say he's like the world's sexiest man. But I mean, every time I see Cillian Murphy, I'm just like, God, what a gorgeous man. And why has he not been over and over the world's sexiest man? Like, wow, I find him way more attractive than Brad Pitt. I don't find Brad Pitt attractive. He's not my type. They think I killed her. Thank you for not asking whether I did. So, holy shit. Now we get a whole nother level to the story. Like I said, they started with the intrigue. They're giving you little glimpses of it. They're not explaining it yet, which keeps you hooked. Like I said, much like Stephen King, he keeps you hooked. And then this is like a whole other level to, okay, now we get why he can't go into the States. And now we get a whole other level to this story of him and Maul and why he's so much a part of, this issue is so unresolved. Of course it's a huge part of his subconscious, because it's so unresolved, and now we know why it's so eating at him and it's so unresolved. We don't know 100% why yet it's really eating at him, but we get that it's a huge part of his life, like his kids, and unresolved, and that's why it keeps showing up in his subconscious. Who would want to be in a dream for 10 years? Depends on the dream. So I love this line. Why? Because I feel like the human experience, what we are all doing now, I do believe that the breath of God, or a part of God, is in us, in each and every one of us. I absolutely believe that. And I believe that we have come to this earth not for what God wants us to do, but for what we want to experience, that we've chosen to experience something. And it's different, absolutely different for everybody, absolutely. But I feel like we have come here for a purpose and for an experience in life, on Earth. And I don't believe Earth is the only place that has life, that has experiences. But we have come here to do that. And this line about who would want to be in a dream for 10 years, is this not what we are doing now? As this soul, as this piece of God here in this physical body right now on Earth, we are here to experience something that we can control. God, Jesus said that, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And I believe what he was trying to say is that you create your own reality. And and we have come here to experience, each one of us has come here to experience something, and to experience this life in this body, in this city, in this state, in this world. And this line is such a great representation of that, in my opinion, because they are going into a dream to experience something that they can create, but they understand that they can create it. I believe to a degree, we have forgotten how to create our own reality. And that's why sometimes it feels like a struggle for us here on Earth to actually make things happen that we want to have happen. The job we want, the spouse we want, the car we want, the blah, 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 blah. I love that line because it's a representation of, I believe, life. And she's talking about dream. How do we know this is not? Anyway, when Ariadne enters, when she sees Cobb dreaming and she enters his dream, tonight was the first time I just went, what a fucking violation. Like, what a horrible thing to do. This is... Okay, the other times she saw him, somebody was with him. At least one of the times, I know. That the other guy was the guy that was I hate to say that. Okay, let me find his name. Yusuf was with him, monitoring him. He was under. This time she sees him. Nobody's with him. But it's, if you're in a dream and you haven't invited other people, what a fucking violation for you to think that it's okay to go into somebody else's personal space. This is absolutely a personal space. I get that without this scene, we can't forward the story. Okay, I get it. I understand that. And we can't have the rest of the movie without this part. But I just thought, like, how dare her? How dare she think that that's okay? That she could make that decision to go into Cobb's dream. So anyway, let's move on to the actual mission. To working on getting to the whole point of this is Inception on Fisher's part. And that first level they go into, aside from the fact that I thought it was brilliant and funny that it's raining and like he has to pee and he's on sleep. Okay, I thought that was cute and funny. Okay, good. Anyway, I love this first level and the train in the middle of the fucking street out of nowhere. Okay, holy shit. So in my mind, when I watch this, I go, the sedative unleashed Cobb's... Okay, so there's two things. The sedative was so good that it relaxed Cobb's control over his subconscious, and it shows up that quick. In the middle of nowhere. It's not mall, it's a fucking train. That's one, I think, the sedative. But two, I think her conversation with him about how dangerous his subconscious has become has subconsciously made him worry about his subconscious. Like, shit, you just made it worse by telling him how dangerous his subconscious has become. It has become that already within a couple of minutes of being in the first level. And because of that, because of the train going through the middle, no tracks, no nothing, all of a sudden there's a train. It's like earlier in the film when she kept changing things and he said, stop changing things because my subconscious will find out that we're in a dream and will come after you. And because Cobb did not have control of his subconscious and he had relaxed, and this train comes out of nowhere, it has alerted the subconscious all right away, and then the militarized subconscious goes after them. It triggers it triggers Fisher's prepared mind that he had been trained to fight off people who were there to take something from his mind, to extract something from his mind. And that's what got the militarized subconscious to strike. And such a great idea to like two huge factors, two huge, like as soon as we get in the dream, we got two big like punches. One, it's Cobb's subconscious is like rampant, like holy shit. And then two is the militarized prepared Fisher's subconscious, and we're like, holy shit, two huge factors we were not counting on. And then Saito gets shot because of the militarized subconscious. It's just like, oh man. Oh, so now you have created not only intrigue like earlier in the film, but now you've raised the stakes that there's so much tension. Like, is Saito gonna die? Oh my god! And is and then we find out. Oh my god, I'm going into these. And then we find out about limbo. Don't kill him because he'll go into limbo because we're in too much of a sedation. So this is just brilliant. Like 5 minutes, a brilliant 5 minutes of film. As soon as they get into the first level of the dream. It's so brilliant because it creates so much tension and and raises the stakes like 100% from where we were before. Like before, we're going into a subconscious and we just have to make sure we do it right. Now it's like now we're totally under the gun. We've got to make it right. Otherwise, I go to jail. Saito dies. Blah blah. All this stuff. Saito wakes up a vegetable. Blah blah. So all these things raise the stakes, and we're halfway through the movie, maybe less than halfway through the movie. But, and like I said, it's a long movie. All these stakes being raised to such a level make the rest of the movie not seem nearly as long as it is. Not nearly. We have a lot of movie to go through, and these intense situations raise the stakes high enough to where I don't feel like the rest of the movie feels like a whole other hour and a half movie. And that's just in my opinion. I feel like the writing was so brilliant to raise the stakes to that level that now I don't feel like the rest of the movie is another. I could be watching something else. I could be watching War of the Roses or something completely else for the second half of this movie. But very, very well done. So before we move on to the next level, I love when, okay, we're stuck in this situation. He talks about limbo already and the stakes of that. So Saito is shot and basically dying. The militarized subconscious is coming after us. We can't last here. The only thing we can do is move on and get the job done as soon as possible before Fisher's subconscious kills us at this level, which we can't survive because then we'll all be in limbo. Okay, I get that. But then the side explanation with Ariadne, where he tells her he knows Inception is possible. Why? Because he did it to Maul. And it's such a... It's so impactful, but we are on such alert and we're moving so quick that we can't take time to really get what a huge blow this is, that he's carrying around this guilt. He gave her Inception, and which caused her to commit suicide, to believe that her reality wasn't real, and the only way to wake up to reality is to commit suicide. What a significant piece of the story, but we've got to move on because we're under the gun, and we haven't told you the whole story. There's still more to go, because I think, there's still more to go. I wrote this note. You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling. That's another line I love from this movie. Side note. That's another line I love from this movie. Tom Hardy. You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling. Keeps the tension. I already talked about keeping the tension. The spinning hallway. So, when we go into level 2, And oh, this is so we go into level 2. I didn't have a whole lot of notes for level 2. It's very self-explanatory. There's a lot of explanation. They tell him, where we're going and what we're doing. I didn't have a whole lot, except for some of the lighting is really great. When the storm comes, and some of the movements is great. But moving way on to the spinning hallway after everybody's moved on to level 3. And they're asleep. And at level 1, the van has already gone off the bridge. And then we lose... Oh, no. Sorry. I'm sorry. Everybody's moved on to level 3, but the van has fallen and is flipping over, and you think it's going to crash on the freeway. And it flipping over is creating the spinning hallway that Arthur's character, just Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character Arthur, is in and fighting that guy. That spinning hallway is so great, and I remember seeing it in the trailer, going, "Holy shit!" And I thought it was so innovative. But much like when they say, so okay, you buy a Harley Davidson, all of a sudden you start seeing Harley Davidsons everywhere. Okay, so this is the situation where I thought that scene was so fucking innovative, and when I saw, before I saw the movie, I saw like making of how they did that, because you've already seen the trailers, and I saw a making of how they did that. I remember seeing the making of before I saw the movie, about the hallway, how they built that hallway in a lift, and it just on a rotation. And so he's in there, and you just have to film it right, which again is, cinematography. Where do you put the camera? How do you move the camera? How do you light that as it spins? Because you've got to light it externally, not just internally. Anyway, I remember thinking that was so innovative, and it blew my mind. But then after seeing Inception, I started seeing it everywhere. Not after, before Inception. And one of the earliest, most significant scenes that I can think of is Nightmare on Elm Street from fucking 80s. I mean, now, in several of my videos, I've said, I was watching the Nightmare on Elm Streets, when I was a kid. Did I know that they had used that technology back then? No. But after I had seen Inception, and then at one point I watched, Nightmare on Elm Street again, I was like, holy shit, that's the same thing. When she gets killed, when I forget her name, but when the blonde girl gets killed, her boyfriend, that gets blamed for her killing later on. When she's literally like falling along the side of the room, and then on the ceiling, and they're showing it from his point of view. That's the same thing. It's a giant room in a rotating, and that's how they filmed that. They actually did, Johnny Depp's scene that way too, and they put the room upside down, and the blood came out. Anyway, my point is, I thought that was innovative when it wasn't. Now, just because it wasn't innovative doesn't mean it wasn't done fantastic for this movie. I mean, it was like, I guess you could say perfected, but maybe not. Somebody might do it better later on. But it was beautifully done for this film. Whereas, yes, it had been done back in the 80s, and maybe even before that, it had been done before, but this did it so well on such a large scale, that whole hall room, and then the hotel room, or the actual room that they go in. It's done on such a large scale, and looks so beautifully done that it did blow our minds and make us think it was innovative when it wasn't. Anyway, I like that fight scene. That fight scene was done really well. But later on, when there's zero gravity, so then, the van, on level 1, the van hits and is off the bridge. And then we get zero gravity on level 2. Level 3 does not have zero gravity. But level 2 has zero gravity in the hotel with Arthur. I love that fight scene way more. The zero gravity fight scene is so cool. I mean, you can tell they're on cables, but still, if you just suspend disbelief, it's so well done. I love that hallway fight scene when it's zero gravity instead. Oh, holy shit. Okay. I don't think I have any notes for level 3. Level 3 is so simple, so self-explanatory. There probably aren't any real notes for level 3, but the fact that they decide to go to limbo on purpose, what an amazing twist. Like, holy shit. Okay, I get it. Okay, because Fisher gets killed on level 3, and he goes to limbo. Well, we've got to go to limbo to get him. What an amazing twist. And then if you think about the concept that we're talking about 3 levels, and then instead of killing Cobb and Ariadne, they don't kill them. They put them under into a 4th level. Okay, so we're talking about level 1 is right now is the van off the bridge. Level 2 is in the hotel where he's trying to figure out how to, with zero gravity, how to push them, how to not push them, how to drop them. And then level 3 is in the snow in the middle of, like, who knows where, Switzerland or something like that, in that compound. So those are 3 levels. So we're led to believe that limbo is level 4. Because they go under, they're not being killed. They're not killed to go to limbo. They actually go under to go to level 4, which we now assume is limbo. So level 4. There are no more than 4 levels, according to this story. I know that's a lot to think about, but according to this story, level 4 is limbo. Oh, here is where we... Okay. So my notes from earlier were a little wrong. Earlier, we know that Inception was done to Maul. And that's why he knows it's true. But he also said earlier in the film that he had done it, so we could assume that he did it to Maul at that point. When he tells Ariadne in level 1 that I know that Inception is true because it happened to Maul. Okay? Now we know. He explains to her he consciously did it to Maul. Now we could already posit that, but now that he says it is like a vindication of maybe what we thought, and then it's just like a whole other, like, oh shit, like now I get where his guilt comes from. You know? And then when he explains how, and they show the image of him getting into her, like, so the house she grew up in, and we get that image of him going into her safe, and then tipping over the, or putting the, spinning the top. Okay, so here's what I found interesting about that part tonight. I don't think I got this before, but I got it tonight because I was really paying attention and saying, I have to talk about this movie. Let's pay attention really well. So she convinced herself that this dream was reality. He says earlier in the film that they were on that level in limbo for something like 50 years. At some point, she decided, much like those people earlier in the film that we see, you know, they come here to wake up and their dreams have become their reality. She has decided she wants this her reality. Even though her kids are not with her, she's with the man she loves. She is in this paradise that they have created over time. And she has decided she wants this to be her reality. How do we know this? Because they have those images of her going into her safe, taking her totem, and putting it on its edge. Which is what? It is the indication that she is in reality. So her totem is the top. Remember, he uses it, but he says it's hers. It was hers. So the key is the totem will fall over if you're in reality. If you're in a dream, it continues to go. So she has taken this top, put it in the safe on its end, indicating this is reality. So she has chosen, at one point, she knows this is a dream, but she has chosen that I want this to be my reality. And she has tipped the top over on purpose. So she made that choice. Cobb, now we find out, has found her totem on purpose and has decided, I don't want her anymore to think this is reality because I want to go home to my kids. And he has spun the top to change her reality, what she's chosen as her reality. This is the really complicated part of the film, which I love. She's chosen the dream as reality by turning the top on its edge. He goes in to change that view, not saying anything to her because I'm sure she checks it every once in a while. Otherwise, the plan wouldn't work. So I'm sure at some point she checks it every once in a while. Otherwise, this would not work. Even her plan wouldn't work. She turns it on its edge because she will check it every once in a while. And as long as she checks it and sees it on its edge, she realizes that this is reality. This is reality. And for him to turn the top and have it spin constantly, at one point she must have checked and seen it spinning and then thought, this is a dream. And the only way to wake up from the dream is to kill yourself, which is the train scene where, you're waiting for a train. It seems so simple, but it really is very complicated how she chose this to be her reality. He's trying to get her to understand. He's done Inception. He's trying to get her to understand this is not reality. I want back to my kids. But when she wakes up, it's the heartbreaking part of the story is that that idea stays with her when she wakes up. It doesn't stay with him. It stays with her. And so when she actually wakes up to reality, she believes it's still a dream because that one simple idea, Inception, has become her whole reality, has become her whole thought. That's the basis of her subconscious. And so now she believes that no matter where she's at, it's not real, and she needs to wake up by committing suicide, by dying. Not necessarily committing suicide, but by dying. Oh my God, it's just wow. It's a heavy idea. It's a heavy concept. It's a great piece of the story. It's very sad. So then, after that part, all the pieces start falling together. All the drops, all the little things start, falling together. As everybody comes out of it slowly, all the things hit perfectly, which is very satisfying. Honestly, as the audience, it's very satisfying to see all of that happen. I love that they show the scene where he says, we did grow old together. And they don't show their faces, which I love. Oh, I love that. I know that these background actors who did this work probably would appreciate that their faces were shown, but on the part of the audience and watching the film, I appreciate that their faces were not shown. But we get from the background actors that were in there that they had grown old together, and I love that they show that. That they were there for 50 years, and they show the reality of that is they grew old together, and then when they committed suicide, they were in their 60s or 70s, had to have been in their 70s, maybe even 80s, because he said they were there for 50 years. So what were they, 20? So they had to be in their 70s. I don't think they were in their 30s. I don't think they're trying to say maybe 70s or 80s. Okay, I just love that they showed that. And then we're back at the beginning of the end because he's gone on to find Saito, and then we're back at the beginning, which is the very first scene that they show. Is we didn't know that before, but now we know it. And I already said, it had to end this way. It had to end with them actually successfully creating Inception in Fisher's mind. Saito makes the call, Cobb gets through, security, gets through immigration, and goes to his kids. And okay, so I never once, when I watched this film, if you listen to it won an Oscar for sound. If you listen to the sound and watch the film, I never once had the thought that the top did not fall at the end. It has to. You hear it wobble at the end. It wouldn't wobble if it wasn't going to fall. The sound. You hear clearly it wobble, and it wouldn't wobble if it wouldn't fall eventually. So I never once thought that the ending was not reality. And if you are one of those people who thought, or who aren't sure, like, did the top fall? Did the top not fall? Is it really reality? Is he not in reality? If you're one of those people, I will tell you, Michael Caine did an interview where he talks about taking on this role. When he read the script, he talked to Nolan and said, how do you know when, this is a great script. How do you know when you're in reality and when you're not? How do you act that? How do you know that? And Christopher Nolan said, don't worry. Every scene that you are in is reality. So the fact that Christopher Nolan told Michael Caine every scene that you are in is in reality, and the fact that Michael Caine is in the final scene when Cobb gets back to his kids, he's the one that, gets the kids to Cobb, he's in that scene, it just solidifies the fact that is reality. That yes, the ending is reality. There is no question. And if I've ruined it for you, I've ruined it for you. I'm sorry. But spoilers. Okay, so that's Inception. I love this film. I think it's very, very well done. It blew my mind. I mean, Christopher Nolan has done some great films in his time so far, and this is one of them. And it just made me, when Tenet came out, it made me so want to see Tenet. And I love that movie too. That movie blows my mind even more than this one does. But this one's fantastic. So if you haven't seen it, I've totally ruined it for you. So now with all this in mind, go back and go watch it and let me know what you think. So thank you very much for listening. That's Inception, or my idea of Inception. And a quick last note is I scratched this off on the poster right there, and I'm so disappointed. Unfortunately, I don't want to do a review of this poster, but unfortunately this poster it's not very well made. I've noticed this already before, that on the instructions of the poster, it gives you this little card that says to use a credit card or something. Be gentle, take your time, scratch them slowly, and everything will come off. Well, I've noticed on several of them, everything doesn't come off. And when it doesn't come off, when the gold doesn't come off, and you try even a little harder, it just scratches to the white behind the poster. It's a pain in the fucking ass. It's happened to me multiple times, but unfortunately, Inception was the worst so far. There's so much of it, I would say 15-20% of it that I could not scratch off, that is still on the poster. It's still gold because it just won't come off, and when I try to push deeper, it just goes to the white beyond the front of the poster. So it is a little frustrating. Hopefully that's the worst of it and all the other ones are better, but we never know. And I was hoping to keep this poster as a memento after, but it wasn't done so well that it looks so bad that I don't know if I'll keep it. I don't know. But I'm going to get through it anyway. So thank you for listening. Hopefully I get you another one before a week is out. So talk to you soon.